describe it? Well, I think for me, I always imagine that I am painting with music. So I'm very melody driven as well. So I'm afraid I don't sketch out lots of harmonic structures and then stick to that. I much more will hear a melody line in my head and I will just follow that through, and keep following it and see where it goes. And usually it comes in my imagination already painted a particular colour. So in terms of the instrumentation, so I tend to hear right from the outset, here is the violin tune, or here is the oboe, that sort of thing. So the music is quite pictorial. The poems that Lindsay came back with were absolutely beautiful. They're following a very sort of strict rhythmic structure, but each poem was following the same rhythmic structure, which is brilliant and works really well for poetry. But for the music, I haven't followed that rhythmic structure rigorously at all, to enable each movement to have its own feel, its own sense of place, because each section is following a different time in Triduana's life. Now, in no sense is any of this to be sort of seen as historically accurate. It's very much poetry and music, loosely based on what we know about Saint Triduana, but obviously there's a huge amount that we don't know, and maybe many of the stories are taken from different places and interweaved together. We don't really know, but it is a fascinating story of this saint who supposedly comes across with the bones of Saint Andrew, and as many others are said to have done, bringing them to Scotland. She's working as a nun with her fellow sisters, going round and helping the sick and so on. She comes into contact with the king of the locality, and he falls in love with her. It's quite fairy tale, but it doesn't end with her becoming a princess or anything like that. She doesn't actually want to be the queen. She takes this very dramatic action of gouging out her eyes. Now it sounds like a very, well, it is obviously self-mutilation, but it was interesting when I was talking to someone who does have a strong background in history. They said that to be regal, you wouldn't have been allowed to be blind. This was something, so if you had a king conquered another king, something that they did was actually blind the previous king so that he couldn't come along and reclaim his kingdom, kind of thing. So equally the king's consort, so the queen wouldn't have been able to be blind. So in a sense it's not so much about her trying to ruin her attractiveness in some way. I don't think it's necessarily to do with that. It's a statement of, I don't want to be queen. I actually feel called to this far more simple life. Now, myself, I feel very ambiguous, ambivalent is the word, yes. I feel ambivalent towards this story. I'm really not sure what I think about it. But I think that's come across in the music. So there are real contrasting sections, and I think that's actually portraying how I feel about the story. Because in a sense, you could say, yes, but after she had this terribly dramatic experience. She then goes north and is involved with preaching the gospel. Many people come to faith through her preaching. She's also associated with healing miracles of other people, which is fascinating to me. But I don't like to see it as the later part of her story vindicated that she had to go through that horrible process. I don't really like seeing things as so sort of clear cut as that, because I mean the ongoing impact of that was huge. So through the music, I wanted to celebrate the good things that did come, and I do believe that she would have been more peaceful later on. There is one version of the story where she's actually martyred right at the end, but I'm afraid we didn't go with that. I think we'd had enough horror in the middle. We go with the ending of a sort of a peaceful end to her life, a peaceful natural end to her life at Restalrig. And so I've got a lovely sort of well, I think it's lovely, I hope other people like it, movement at the end where I'm sort of imagining the sound bouncing off the walls in that well house that we went to visit. And the time signature keeps changing. But actually, I think as an audience, if you're not rigorously counting the beats, I don't think you would notice that it's 7/4 and then it's 3/2 and then it's 5/4 or whatever. I don't think that will come across. It will just sort of keep flowing, and it's like the music is bouncing around, but in a beautiful kind of way, I hope. So what was I saying? So how the music comes through, we have sort of this fairy tale beginning of her life. We also have her journey on the sea. So we have the sea represented through the music, and with lots of lush strings and so on. Have storm going on as well, which I had a great fun painting with music in terms of portraying this storm that Lindsay had just intimated in one of the poems. And then we do have this section with King Necton. King Necton I've represented largely through the trumpet, so you might feel that the trumpet has quite an overbearing role in the music, and that is deliberate. And I mean, I don't think he was necessarily a bad guy. We don't know, do we? But we don't know why she felt she needed to gouge out her eyes. Was it because she didn't think he would take just a simple no for an answer? I don't know. But then after that, then we've got her travelling north to the Picts and so on. And the music there, there'll be major, there's minor, it kind of sort of flicks a bit between the two, and then we come to Restalrig right at the end. So the scoring, there's 3 soloists, soprano, mezzo-soprano and baritone. None of them are playing a character as such, they're all narrators. And then there's chorus, and then it's a sort of medium-sized orchestra, not a massive brass section, but you've got full woodwind and strings and harp and some percussion in there as well. So if you wanted to come along, then that would be amazing. So thank you very much